Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Tell Me Everything. I'm your host, Danielle Spinelli. And today's guest, I have Sage. If you are not familiar with Sage, he is very well known on the YouTube space. I think he has like a Discord and a bunch of other social media out there. I will make sure to post that in the description so you guys can be sure to follow him. Very interesting life he has had within logistics. So Sage started off as a U.S. Coast Guard, then getting into a truck driving job, then got into a brokerage position as an agent, and then now is now an insurance agent. So seen full 3 different sides of logistics, has a really interesting take on how to handle your business and how to, be successful. What I really love about this conversation with Sage is he really broke down how he came from the bottom and came up basically. So how did he overcome some of the biggest struggles that him and his wife went through together? So kind of talking about that, and then where he's at today and how he was able to pivot quickly. The more life experiences that you have, you pick up on how to make changes quickly so that way you avoid any type of risk personally. Love Sage's story. It's really inspirational and really helps me really appreciate all of the things that I have too. So hopefully you guys feel the same way. And let's go ahead and jump in it.
Tell me everything.
Tell me everything.
My Instagram reels or Instagram and TikTok reels are now like full conspiracy theories because my dad's a huge conspiracy theorist. And so now for some reason they're so on that. So right now, like the flat earth is like all over my page.
Sure, blame your dad. I see how it really is.
I swear, if you ever met him, you'd be like, what the heck? He's super fun, but yeah, he's like very, very conspiracy theory. But what's weird is like during the vid, he was like, yeah, this, like they're doing this and they're doing that and the shots do this and whatever. And I was like, whatever, like you're so full of it. Like you always come up with the craziest theories. And then like shortly after all this stuff comes out and I'm like, oh my God, my dad was right. Shoot.
That's that's always really scary sometimes when that happens though too. It's like, damn it.
I know. I'm like, dang it. I don't like this. He's not supposed to be right all the time. Anyways, well, thanks so much for joining my show. I am so happy to have you on here. I've watched you on YouTube and on LinkedIn and all those things. And yeah. So why don't you introduce yourself, say how cool you are and all those things.
Well, I will try. So my name's Sage. That's actually my real name. So basically what I am is I'm a YouTuber content creator. I do a lot of political stuff on YouTube right now, but by trade or not, sometimes you depend on who you talk to. I'm actually a freight broker. I'm a licensed insurance agent. I have a CDL license. I was an owner operator. I was a carrier. I joined the Coast Guard for a couple of years, got back out of the Coast Guard and went back to driving a truck. And I've had a kind of let's just say an interesting life basically coming up into logistics. So for me, when I was 21 years old, I wanted to be a law enforcement officer. So I started to go to college for that. My dad says, well, I'm not paying for this, so you better figure it out. I mean, he was a truck driver.
Yeah.
So I said, well, I'll get my CDL. That way, at least I can, pay for college and stuff. And I ended up driving truck. I ended up going over the road for Schneider. I did that and then came back and started driving local. I'm originally from Buffalo, New York. Drove for like local.
New York, and by the way, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's people say that. I live in Maine now, and they're like, "You're not from Maine." I know, I'm originally from Buffalo, New York.
Yeah, they're nothing against Buffalo, New York people. I love them, but like they're just so, I don't know what the right word is, but very like Buffalo, New York people. Like they're shoveling the snow out of their stadium. Like they're just rugged and badass. Yeah.
So then what happened was I actually drove for U.S. Food Service. Then I joined the Coast Guard. So after leaving the Coast Guard, I went back to driving tractor trailer again with my wife because we didn't have a home. We basically lived in the truck for a year with no home, just driving over the road. She never knew anything about truck driving. She got her permit, but besides that, she knew nothing of the experience. She's just like, I'm going to see the world. No, you're not. You're going to see highways. Once she realized that we didn't get to see the world, and at least the United States, as much as people think, she got kind of she got like panic attacks and anxiety and stuff like that. So we actually were driving for Landstar at the time, and she became a Landstar agent, and I was a Landstar driver. So
Okay.
this was back in 2008. And in 2008, we had the recession, right? So during that, basically, it was brutal for us. Like we were behind. We lost almost everything. We were living in a $30,000 house in Tennessee on an acre property out in the middle of nowhere, and sleeping on a mattress on the basically on the floor. I ended up losing my tractor. I ended up surrendering that, And it got to the point, and this is, I'll go why I did it. It got to the point that, like, she's the love of my life. We live 24/7, 365 for the last 20 years, and I wouldn't change that for the world. But when that person comes to you with tears in her eyes saying, "How are we gonna survive?" I don't have family or anything. That is probably the most brutal thing to ever have to look her and say, "I don't know."
Yeah.
That right there was life-changing event for me, right? Even now, I tear up a little bit. Don't tell anybody. Don't share that. No, I'm just kidding. At that point, it was like I had to make a decision, and I had to decide, the truck or the agency at that point, which was the Landstar agency. So I chose the agency because I believed I could be better as an ex-military operation, in the Coast Guard at a small boat station. But I had management training and stuff. I felt that I could be better at sales and better at selling myself to be able to make it better as an agent in logistics than just the driver at that point. So we went months with me waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, working until 11 o'clock at night, almost a year. I was pulling out any freight, and the Landstar board, you can pull freight off of other brokerages and put it on the Landstar board because that's all they can see, right? So if a C.H. Robinson had one, I could do that. So I did that. Just nonstop, making $30, $40 at a pop, as much, to basically pay the bills. Luckily, we would go shopping and, a strict shopping list. And even at that point, have to put things back at the cash register, which is pretty embarrassing. Never went on welfare or assistance or anything, but still pretty embarrassing. And basically said, I was able to pull myself out and build that company from the basic need of looking your loved one in the eyes and not being able to answer, how are we going to survive?
Yeah.
And was monstrous to be able to get through that. So after that, I was a Landstar agent. I started getting direct customers. I used to sit on the phone with drivers for hours learning over-dimensional freight because I specialize in over-dimensional freight now, like 20-foot tall, 20-foot wide. Just hours learning absolutely everything I could possibly learn so that I could be smarter than the guy next to me, next to the guy that I'm competing with in the same field that I am. And I learned it, just talking to them, understanding everything from axle spacings to dimensions to when you need escorts and pilot cars and permits and decks of trailers and what heights. And I needed to know everything they could know, plus everything on the logistics portion of that conversion. So from there, I basically ended up opening my own brokerage in 2012. I opened up my own brokerage. I worked as an agent for a couple other people, and then opened up my own brokerage and started to get my own customers. Just like I said, from just cold calling. Like back then we had the internet. It was, some people still had dial up, but I would send emails. I would ask my drivers to get me pictures of a load. And then if, let's say, they hauled a fiberglass tank or a fiberglass pipe, I would take that picture, type it a quick email with the picture of that load, and email every single fiberglass pipe and tank customer I could find with that picture. And eventually some of them thought that it was their load. So they eventually emailed me back and said, "Hey, this was good. I actually thought this was our load, and there was an issue with it. Like there was a problem," saying, you know what I mean? So people basically started saying, "Hey, is this what type of stuff you move?" And then from there, I could at least interact with them. I could get past the gatekeeper because they thought that was their load and there was a problem. So I was able to build a lot of customers with that. And this all came out of the 2008 recession. So when the COVID, sorry, I'm trying to retrain myself. There was that same mentality that I saw from drivers who were, booming, but when this fell and the market jumped out at them, I saw that same struggle in a lot of people on YouTube screaming, "Oh my God, I'm losing everything." We see these videos. So then I started to say, well, I've been there. I've had to tell my loved ones. I've been in the exact spot.
Right.
So I started my YouTube channel basically going over, explaining how, basically from behind the wall, what's going on with the broker. Because so many truck drivers, they know what happens. I tell them they've got that windshield view, but they need that 30,000 top-down view to put it all together. And there was so many that didn't understand that view that I started my original YouTube just going over and explaining, okay, this is a brokerage, this is what's going on behind here, just answering a bunch of questions in regards to why this happens and why this happens and why this happens. And the channel started to blow up at that point, and I was covering like the ships at the port, and I was explaining what was going on with there, and I was explaining what was going on with logistics, and why I thought that, at that time, the administration, I wanted to shake them because, of course, I could see all the things they should be doing better, but they're not doing it. But, and there was a time where basically, I started to get a lot of people in there, and a lot of people started following that, and kind of learning that. So that's kind of how I started to build that channel from that aspect. And with YouTube, you have these ups and downs with YouTubes, and eventually people will bore that content when things, get better and stuff like that. But that was kind of the start of where I where I am today, is because I've been there broke as a joke, right? I mean, to the point that it was brutal, to the point that even now, like I said, even, you know, you you get to the point even now where that, I was able to see, like, things are slowing down now, right? But this time I was saying, "Hey, I'm gonna pivot way faster than I did before." And that's when I ended up saying, "Okay, I'm gonna." I had a buddy of mine reach out and say, "Hey," every time I used to call him for insurance questions, he'd be like, "Did you pass your test yet? Did you pass your test yet? When are you gonna pass your test? You gonna pass your test yet? I want to hire you." And I'm like, "No, I'm not gonna pass my insurance test. I don't want to do insurance, truck insurance." And eventually I reached out to him. I said, "Hey, are you still interested? Because it's slow over here in my, project side with overdimensional freight." He's like, "Go pass your test. Go pass your test." And I ended up passing my truck insurance test to sell commercial insurance. But this time, like I said, rather than wait, I saw needed to happen. And this happens in business, right? And it's the first time you hang on too long, but I think the next time, like we are, when we have these issues now, it's finding that pivot and pivoting
Yeah.
faster, quicker, right? And realizing it's that pivot that actually makes you find something that could be better. And that's where I am now. Is I ended up shutting down my brokerage, signing on and getting a really good deal with an agency, and then also being able to do insurance. Um, and that's kind of when I, like I said, wanted to reach out to you because there's probably lots of questions, because I think there's a lot of people that get to these situations and get to themselves. I was in a situation where it was a unaliving a situation. You see what I'm saying? For me and we would never be apart, me and my wife. So it was that desperate back then. To know where you are, and just say to yourself, "Nah, you ain't gonna beat me. You ain't gonna beat me. I'm gonna figure something out. You ain't gonna beat me." I wanted this, so many people tell you how great it and everything else, but they don't tell you the bottom as much, and where those feelings were, and what happened there, and the mistakes you made. That I think that was one of the stories that not that I like telling it, I just like telling it because if you're there or people were there,
Yeah.
there's ways out.
Yeah.
There's ways out if you're ready for it. So that's the gist of the story. Now we can all cry together and hold each other. But no, I'm just kidding. But that's kind of that's me in a nutshell. I won't give up. It's just not going to happen. And because I've been to the bottom, and like I said, and anybody that right now that thinks about their wife coming and crying, saying, "How are we going to live? Maybe we shouldn't anymore." That's brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal.
I can't even imagine. That's wild. So, and then because kind of what's going on now, like you said, you're doing the insurance stuff. So tell me about that. Like, is that totally a different world? Like, I only know brokerage space. I understand trucking space, but insurance, I'm like, it's almost like the lawyers, like you kind of like love, hate those guys. Like they do great
Yeah,
things. They're awesome, but then they're like denying claims. You're like, you're costing me this money. So
yeah.
like a weird
Insurance
feeling to get in there.
was when I first got into. First of all, when you first pass the test for insurance, it's called property and casualty, right? And I'm like, I'm going to ace this because this is going to do with trucking, and I'm going to probably know half the questions. There was one question out of like 120 questions that had anything to do with trucks in any way. Everything is homeowners, and because commercial trucking falls under a property and casualty, which is car and homeowners and commercial selling and things like that, even workman's comp. And I'm like, what? What does this have anything to do with trucking? And so just studying for that, and it's a state test that you have to pass, just studying for that was like, okay, this is going to be a problem. And of course, I've been out of school for many, many years, and test taking was obviously not my forte, but I was able to pass that. So once I actually got into doing the commercial sales, and I landed in a I landed with a buddy of mine who knows his stuff. So at least he going to go to work with him, he kind of knew where I was coming from because he's also had a carrier. So there's things that I'm like, wait a minute, like insurance thing. Even though you know and I know that if for a carrier to be able to broker freight, they have to have a brokerage. They can't broker it through the thing. Well, insurance companies don't want carriers to have brokerages because they look at this as too. So even though we know that they have to be able to do this, insurance company sees a carrier who has a brokerage and they might cancel them.
Oh,
So
really?
here I am saying, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. No, this is legal. That's not. And so there's been a couple things in insurance that people have said, yeah, listen, I understand it's legal, but that doesn't mean the insurance companies have to allow you to do it. I'm like, that's not right. That's not fair. That's not right. But I think a lot with the insurance is it is another world of if you have a good insurance agent that knows their stuff, you're good. But just like there's evil brokerages, and I'll use the term evil, there's also evil insurance agents that either might not know the stuff or will put you into a situation to make the sale that in the end, you're the one paying the problem in the end.
Yeah.
Right. And that was something that for me, it was you don't think you think they have obligations because they do have a license, but just because they have those obligations and the license to lose, they still ride the line of like of being bad.
It's
Right.
still sales too. So, I mean, unfortunately, sales is sales. Some people are good salesmen and they do the right thing and they don't make as much as the guys who don't do the right thing sometimes. Not all the time, but a lot of times the ones that are doing the shady stuff, they're top dog commission guys. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I can see how that can happen.
And that was, and even understanding, like I said, there's a lot of times where it's funny too, because every time I'll run, like you'll go through the whole thing and then I have to say, okay, do you have any accidents, any tickets, any claims, anything at all? 99% of the people say, nope, I got nothing. Perfect license. I'm like, did you just forget about the accident you had 2 weeks ago? Did that slip your mind? But it's amazing too, because and I think that was another aspect that people don't understand in regards to so you have an MVR that's going to follow your driving record, right? Tickets, accidents, things like that. But you also have something that insurance is looking for is any type of claim. So if you've made a claim, even though it wasn't an accident, that's on your insurance record because the insurance paid money out for something. Might
Right.
not have been your fault or it might have been your fault. I had one guy that I'm like, you have a claim. He's like, you have a at-fault accident. I'm like, no, I don't. I'm like, you do. And it took us like 15 minutes and we're like, do your kids drive your car? Does your ex-wife drive your car? Has anybody, what's going on here? And I'm like, do you have a boat? Do you have a four-wheeler? I'm like, what? He's like, my side-by-side fell off a mountain. I'm like,
Oh,
what? He's like, yeah. I'm like, was it insured? He's like, yeah. Was it totaled? He's like, it fell off a mountain. I'm like, well, okay, let's go with the total then.
yeah.
And that was a claim. It was an at-fault accident to the insurance company because he didn't set the brake. And because he didn't set the brake, it was an at-fault claim that the insurance had to pay out for $50,000, which I didn't know they were that expensive.
They're wild.
I had no idea. That was a claim. So that ended up on his commercial when we ran his, for commercial insurance, that ended up popping up his insurance.
Wow.
So it's things like that people don't think of, that it's like every time I'm like, okay, you got nothing, are you sure? And then I'm like, enter. And then next thing I'll know, if something pops up, I'm like, oh, this is going to be bad, because I'll see
On
it.
your record, like on your insurance record.
So depending on the insurance company, some are 3 or to 5 years, basically, depending on who's running it. Let's say Progressive or Geico or CoverWell, they kind of have but like Progressive, which is a common one everybody knows, they're like 5 years are going to go back.
Okay.
So that was another aspect. But yeah, you're right. Insurance is a whole nother world
Totally.
in regards to the industry, to be honest.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's almost like the stepchild that you're trying to ignore because you have to pay it and premiums are going up and everything's going up but you're not getting paid as much. So as far as whenever you're going into let's say you're going into like a new client, and since you do have the history of all the different fields, is it where you almost like coach them on your insurance would be this, but if you did this differently, then what's some advice that you have as far as all that
Yeah,
goes.
so a lot of times if you're like with me at least, calling into me, it's good because if I can answer a lot of questions if you're in the trucking, like everything from brokering, to hauling to driving so a lot of things what I'm doing is checking. The first thing I'm doing is I'm checking your FMCSA filing. Right? Is that right? People don't realize or carriers don't realize how important that is to have right. Correct. Like I'll pull it up. I'm like, oh, you have 7 trucks? Nope, we have 2. Okay, this still says 7. Or I'll get one that somebody will say, wait a minute, this says carrier/freight forwarder. Yes, I carry the freight and I move the freight forward. Nope, no, you don't. Nope, that's not how that works. So we've had to go back and make a couple. That was a true thing. Somebody actually said that to me. They thought that that's what that
Oh,
meant.
yeah.
And I'm like, no, that's not how that works. Let me explain this to you. Or authorized for hire, exempt for hire, private property. And I'm like, so you own your own freight? Like, are you in farming? That's like you're taking your product to market or something? He's like, no. I'm like, so then why are you exempt from hire? Like, what made you think? Well,
Yeah.
sometimes I move my son to college and I use my straight truck or my box truck to move my kid, out to college every year. I'm like, yeah, that's not exempt for hire. That's just, you can do that, which with a bill of lading, that's not, we don't have to list it on the FMCSA moving son to college. You're being paid to move freight. You're authorized for hire. But it's making sure that you understand everything you're checking when you're filling that out is usually one of the first things that's gonna hurt you.
And the
And even if
FMCSA
it's
does a bad job at explaining everything, I mean, like, to me, it's for me, even it's so confusing. And I was a broker for 8 years, and it's like, even looking at the exempt and doing that, and you're like, I know I can't hire these people if they have all this, but I don't know what it means. And they don't do a great job at explaining everything. Obviously, that's why so many carriers have things wrong.
right, and that's it's even going through and saying, okay, let me give you an example of exempt for hire. I have a customer that manufactures their own fiberglass pipe. They have their own trucks. They load it on there. They can only go one way. They can deliver it to the receiver, and they got a deadhead back because they're not authorized to take freight back. Are you doing that? Oh, no, I'm not going anywhere. Okay, so you're authorized for hire,
Yeah.
meaning you can take that and explain that. Or like one of the cargo, you have like general freight, auto, and all the, the cargos. People will check intermodal container. And intermodal container, a lot of insurance companies won't insure you if you do that because intermodal container means you have a permit and you have a chassis and you're picking up at the port. That's intermodal container. We know it as drayage.
Right. Okay. Yes. Yeah.
So if you're doing drayage, insurance companies don't want to insure you because sometimes if it comes off the can comes off the boat and goes onto the chassis and gets to the cross dock. Well, they don't know who broke it. Was it broken on the boat? Was it broken on the truck? Who broke it? And then it becomes a fight. So a lot of people will think that, hey, well, I did pick up this container and I stuck it on my step deck or my flatbed and I hauled it from here to here. I'm like, that's not intermodal container. That's not drayage. That's you just picking up a can and taking it to your customer.
Yeah. That's like a power only, I guess, then, right? Almost.
Well, that's or just loading a container. You're just loading a container, right? You don't have a chassis that you have a permit for and you have to go back. You know what I mean? That's not all you're doing. But a lot of them will check that. And I'll see this and I'll be like, okay, this is going to cause red flags, right? This is going to cause insurance companies to basically say, danger, this is no good. And that's usually a big portion of me trying to make sure that the carrier gets the best rate possible because I want them to succeed, right? I want the carrier to do good. But that's where I run into.
So I actually just talked to a customer the other day who has, or it was yesterday, about one of the things that they look for is if in FMCSA, their MSC or MCS 150 form, if they change from like 100 trucks to 20 trucks, and then it's like right around their renewal time, and then they change it back up to 100 trucks or whatever, obviously just trying to get their price of their insurance down. Do you look at that too? Or is that happen often enough like he was talking about? Or
Yeah, so what happens, and here's one of the things that people might want to know from the carrier side, or a lot of times I'm going to look at that and how many trucks you have, but then insurance is also going to go in and see how many of your trucks are inspected. So if you say, I don't own this truck anymore, but it went through an inspection last week, yes, you do, right? So they're also looking at how many trucks have been inspected and how many times you've been inspected for the insurance. So now what insurance companies are doing, and I'll use Progressive and Geico because that, a lot of the New York carriers have that, is if you're caught saying that you don't have a truck that you actually own, they will cancel you for 1 year. You're banned for a year, right? If they catch you using a virtual address, you're banned for a year, right? So they're going to ask you for verification of garaging location, and that garaging location is going to be utility bill, lease agreement, something like that, where you can be like, nope, I keep my truck down the road at the storage place. Here's my lease agreement for that I have to be able to park my truck, right? That's your garaging location. That's valid. But if you're using a virtual address in Wyoming when you live in New York to get the better, they're going to see that and they're going to say, you don't garage your truck here, and we're going to kick you off. We're going to cancel your insurance and we're going to ban you for 1 year. So now the issue is that the insurance agent may or may not get affected by that, but you definitely will. So we're starting to see more insurance agents that are going with that or allowing you to do that rather than saying, whoa, 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 this is a virtual address. You can't do this or this is going to happen. But they're just trying to make the sale, and
Yeah.
they're not worried about you. If you get canceled, that's kind of your fault. You know what I
Right.
mean? Down the road. And they're trying to make these sales. So you're really wanting to make sure that you're doing, and you guys know this because you guys deal a lot with fraud and fighting fraud and things like that. The insurance companies are definitely starting to make a lot more better decisions in regards to not allowing. Now we're becoming also one of the faces of, hey, you can't do this. You can't do this virtual address. Hey, you can't not put this truck on your policy.
Yeah.
So that's becoming, which I think is good, right? I do believe we all have to play a role in regards to doing this. So it's nice to see that insurance companies are stepping up also.
Yeah, I do have insurance companies ask to be customers on my care portal for that reason. Like, hey, I want to be able to vet who's coming in. And it's interesting because some platforms out there will block insurance companies based on like if they've signed up a double broker or they did whatever. Like there's a history of it. I am like, that's a slippery slope because it could be where they, like you just said, like somebody was just trying to get a sale and they just were like ignoring something. It doesn't mean that they're in on it or they're getting paid under the table to be a bad guy. Like a lot of most people are not like that. Like the amount of fraud or like bad people out there is like 1% probably less than 1% compared to everything that's out there, all the freight that's moved. It is really low. And so I think banning an insurance company is wild to me. But knowing that an insurance company has good practices, like you're just talking about, where they're checking those type of things, there should be a better way to like almost grade an insurance company to see that.
Yeah, and that's kind of what they're doing. Like I said, so we have procedures that we go through that is like, okay, you're calling in. I'm checking to see if if the Progressive hasn't banned you or canceled you or anything, or Geico hasn't, or whatever markets I have open for you. And I'm using the common ones because everybody knows them, right? But there's other ones out there. And then I say, okay, I check your FMCSA filing. I make sure that looks all good. There's nothing funny there. I then check your CSA thing. Okay, you've got some inspections. Perfect. I have a VIN number here. And then from there, I just copy Google and throw that into Google. I check that address. Okay, yeah, that's an address. Or if it's not, like I have run into people that it's like, hey, this is so-and-so logistics company, but there's a ton of parking. And the guy's like, yeah. The guy lets me park my truck there. I have a copy of the lease if you want to see it. Yeah, perfect. That's what I need. That's exactly what I need. And he does, like and because he's got a huge parking lot, and he's probably go to them saying, hey, I only have one truck. Can I park in the back? Because and then the guy, they sign some financial means to be able to do that. So that's legitimate stuff. You start to kind of know the ones that are like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And then at that point, I can be like that. I'm gonna be honest with you. This affects my score with the insurance company just as much. If I do this, the insurance company is going to kind of look at me and saying, hey, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So that's going to be bad for me to sell that market. Right. And then Progressive might say, we don't want you selling our market anymore, or whatever it is. So it is kind of, like I said, it makes me, all of us try to do our best to things are going to slip through. It just happens. People make mistakes, but it does our best to try to alleviate some of the fraud and things that are happening in the system, which makes it all better for us in the end, because then we're having less payouts for insurance companies, which hopefully eventually, maybe, possibly lowers our insurance rates for the good people.
Fingers
Maybe.
crossed. Yeah.
But since I'm a freight broker and an insurance agent, I'm the devil, so that you'll probably disagree with that.
So you are still moving freight under your brokerage as well?
Not under my brokerage. So what I did was My wife, who was also the Landstar agent, she's now running the agency. They signed me on, but then I just hire her. Allegedly, I hire her basically to do this. I don't know how that actually works because she takes all my money anyways. So I guess I now legitimately pay her, where before she just took my money. But I've been married for 22 years, so that's normal. I'm told in marriages.
Good.
But so now she legally takes the money, but before she just took it.
Yeah.
Oh, I love my wife more than anything. But no, so she's running that portion of it. And the type of freight I move is like, I might do like 70 loads a year, but the loads like one load might be $150,000 because I'm moving something huge going, from Texas to Washington or something that I don't like. The stuff I specialize in is tall and wide. Like I don't do heavy. A lot of my stuff is either fiberglass tanks or steel tanks. They're round, going into either. Sometimes they go into oil fields, sometimes they go into water treatment plants or things like that. That's kind of my specialty. That's like on the bottom of my signature, it basically says, overdimensional freight isn't one of the things I do. It's the only thing I do, and that makes a difference, right?
Yeah.
Because you're calling me 9 times out of 10, I got most of my customers from somebody else screwed it up.
Yeah.
Right. And then basically
they didn't know how to do,
Right.
I mean,
or somebody budgeted for something that it was like, hey, we budgeted $10,000 to move this. And I'm like, yeah, that's not going to happen. I mean, the survey alone is going to be like $15,000. And that's just them to see if we can actually move it. So that's not going to happen. But that's usually where I got a lot of the customers that I work with now was basically, other brokerages or other companies or other carriers have basically screwed it up. And they basically either it's sitting there or they can't get it moved or they can't get permits or something like that happened. And then they called me in and I said, okay, well, here's where we went wrong. And here's why this is happening. And I'm very good at explaining things. I want to make sure that we're all on the same page and they understand. Like if you're either buying insurance from me, if you're moving freight, if you're a carrier, I want you to understand so we're all on the same page. Maybe that's from me being in the Coast Guard because we all had to be on the same page or we're doomed when you're in search and rescue. But it's that making sure, okay, you understand what's going on. I understand. Okay, let's move forward. Like I don't want to work for you. I want to work with you. So we're going to have to be, we're all going to have to learn here to make sure we know what's going on, which has worked quite well, to be honest, for my customers and what I do and moving freight like that.
Yeah. Do you feel like other things of being a Coast Guard has like came over into the logistics space, but they specialize actually in they have like a trailer container. It's called Bloodhound, and it's like where the trailer has different things like sensors on it or whatever. And they came up with the whole idea because you're on the Coast Guard. They were like going on these ships. Do you feel like that has helped you? That base has made you exceed in logistics?
Yeah, I don't get seasick as much anymore doing freight as I used to. No, I think that it's a lot of when it came to moving over dimensional freight and when it comes to doing Coast Guard, at least at a small boat station, I was an engineer on a small boat station. So we ran a 47, which is the search and rescue boat for the Coast Guard. I was at Coast Guard Station Gloucester. That's where the Perfect Storm movie was filmed. And that's where the boat came out of. We actually lived in the Eastern Point Lighthouse. So I lived in the lighthouse.
Oh,
So there's a lot of procedures as the engineer. The coxswain drives the boat. He's the guy in charge of the boat. And then the engineer is the second in charge. And I'm working the bottom deck. So when another boat's taking on water, I'm going on that boat. When we're doing law enforcement, I'm the boarding officer. So there's a lot of procedures and things you have to memorize that you have to everybody has to be in sync when we're trying to pull a boat off the rocks or something like that. There's procedures. So to me, it's that easily, okay, what's my procedures? Boom, 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 stick with them, do it every time, do it the same way every time. So that was a big thing that, let's just say, growing up, chaos. I played hockey for a reason because it's chaos, right? It wasn't
hockey too.
Yeah. So for me, it wasn't until the Coast Guard that I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I got to memorize this and we have to do it in the same order every single time. When did that happen? Because even people to me, and I'll spell things and I don't spell the best. And I'm like, spelling's overrated. You don't need to have all those letters in the same order every time. But with the Coast Guard and stuff, you did. And that made it so that we all needed that, that we had that same format. But it also made it that when my drivers are out there hauling, I look at them as the boat that's out there doing the rescue, right? I'm the comm center. What do you need from me? What do you need from me? What's going on and what do you need from me?
Yeah.
And if they need it, because there's been times where like, okay, we got a wire snagged on the tank. We're going to need a bucket truck out here. Got it. I'll make some calls. Right. So for me, it's it's, it's making sure that my guys delivering that freight, I'm their office. I'm their communication center. I'm the one that if they got a call, they got a problem, they're on the road. I got to be able to and that was another important aspect of things. And I think the other thing that I learned the most, and I even learned this from okay, I'm going to sound like a nerd, but in 1965, David Rockefeller did a speech in San Francisco at a conference that I learned the importance of middle management. And a lot of people basically say, "Oh, you don't need that's just you're micromanaging. You're not you don't understand middle management." But back then, he said something that basically said that the jobs of the future are going to need some of the best management skills out there. You really want to, because what's going to happen is you're going to deal with automation, immigration. And what the middle management does is it basically creates a buffer from the chaos at the top that people don't know what's going on to keep consistency at the bottom. So that the people that are selling and the people that are doing the job, they see consistency and they see everything going smooth. When, as you know, as a business owner, there's nothing but chaos at the top, right? So that middle management is the perfect buffer to keep the consistent people making money and making things go smooth down here, because those are your soldiers. And I hear this all the time when I'll be like, well, who's your middle management? Oh, we don't have one. You don't need one of those. Yeah, actually you do.
Yeah.
And it's the best businesses that realize that if you don't have that buffer from the chaos, the bottom feels the chaos and starts to get nervous, starts to not know what they do. They start second guessing themselves, or they might start looking for another job, or they might start, saying, oh my God, are we okay here? Which affects their sales, which affects their operations.
Yeah.
And that's where your best middle managers can take the chaos. And that's one of the things I learned when I made rank in the military, is that I had basically a commanding officer say, guess what your new job is? To keep the chaos from the I'm like, what's that mean? He's like, we're going to be nuts up here. Everybody thinks they want to make rank till they make rank.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh my God, what is going on here?
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. But you can't let the people underneath you see that.
Yeah.
Because then things don't function well. And that was one of the things that I think I learned the most, was being able to have that middle management mindset, so that customers are screaming at me and complaining and all this other stuff, but my drivers, they just see the consistency and they just see the stability, which means they get their job done safely to the best of their ability. And that was one of the biggest things I think I took away from it.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that's a good point. I mean, I think even so I'm in sales. So like for me, if I hear anything chaotic going on, I'm like, I don't want to sell anymore. I'm throwing in the towel. You know what I mean? You're like so dramatic.
Exactly.
That's what I feel. Most salespeople are dramatic and, eccentric or whatever.
That's where that middle management comes in, to keep that buffer so you don't hear the chaos, so you can continue to do what you do best.
Yeah.
And that's sell.
Yeah.
Right. And I believe there's a lot of businesses out there that don't understand that importance of that. And I mean, you don't have to have 52 middle managers, right? But there should be that hierarchy to keep that, because the first thing I don't want to hear from my salesperson is, I don't want to sell anymore. Right. Right. So then you have to say, why? What happened? And it's, well, you guys are doing this and this is happening over here and there's a whole bunch of changes this. And it's like, and that's the importance of that middle management. And that was, like I said, once people realize that, it's a big deal. It's a big deal in how your business flows and how more, you get more out of your people. And that's why, like I said, in that speech, he basically said, we have to create the best middle management we possibly can. We have to train them to be able to think on their feet and be able to interact with automation, immigration, production, efficiency, and understand all this and create that buffer between our chaos and the consistency that needs to be at the bottom for that stable ground. And like I said, that was something that from that speech that it was like, holy crap, I get it now. I understand. But yeah, so that was it.
That's interesting. Well, even like with AI coming in, if everyone's like, they're going to take this job and that job and whatever, well, there still needs to be somebody manning the helm, telling the AI kind of what to do or whatever. What do you feel like, especially with all the different trades you've done, do you feel like AI will replace a lot of jobs, or what's your take on that?
So we've moved into a different, I'm going to go back nerd again. So we've moved basically, I do it so well. No, I'm from Buffalo. So basically we've had industry 3.0 in different industries. You've had the industrial revolution, things like that, and we've moved into what we thought was the perfect thing was industry 4.0. Where industry 4.0, we believe that AI was just going to jump all over things, take our jobs, replace us in any way, shape, or form. And in logistics, we've learned from things like that doesn't go well. Because, in my opinion, and what I seem to is, if we had AI taking away the freight brokers' jobs per se, customers give me a lot of money so that I can be the blame.
Yeah.
I can take the responsibility when things go wrong, right? I'm liable for that. If it was AI based, they'd have no one to blame but themselves, and nobody wants to pay a lot of money to not be able to blame somebody else. I know it might be tough to say, but again, I'm blunt. So we've kind of realized that the true brokerages we thought, or the click and go just style of moving freight and not interacting with people, although it might have seemed good, we've realized that it's not the best idea, right? Because customers who pay a lot of money want a human interaction. Nobody wants to sit on hold and just deal with
Yeah.
no customer service, right? You want to actually be able to talk to somebody, right? So we've moved into more of what I believe would be more of the future. It's going to be an industry 5.0, which we're starting to see now. And right now, everybody's watching this saying industry 5.0, and they're Googling it, which is basically an interaction between AI that's going to make my job easier, but still make what I can now don't have to do the mundane tasks. And
Yeah.
I can focus more on the customer and their needs, or the carrier and their needs, right?
Right.
Now, but I don't have to do the check calls. That's AI handled or something, right? And now
And handling
I'm
it.
bringing more value through AI to my customers so they can now feel better giving me money,
Right.
right? And I think that's kind of where we're going to start to see. I mean, some jobs, obviously, maybe personal assistance to the assistant, basically, is basically going to go away. But it's going to make it where you're going to be able to do what you're good at, and that might be sales, or that might be problem solving, or that might be customer relations, even better than having to pull away just to do this one email, to handle this one check call, to do this one thing. I can now interact and say, I can go to my customer now because that's being handled, and saying, hey, is there anything else I can help you with? Is there anything else going on in regards to possibly, chargebacks or any type of stuff that maybe I can take a look at, or are you having issues? Because
Yeah.
I now have time freed up to be able to interact more. And I think that's something that customers who pay a lot of money are going to eventually want more of. And I think AI is going to allow us to do more of that. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
No,
I could be completely wrong, and we could all be robots within the next year. But
I think you're right. I think there's so many exceptions that happen in trucking that there's no way that anything could be automated. I mean, maybe like 100 years down the road that an AI person handles all the different exceptions. But I remember being a broker, and every week there was always like, oh, I never knew this was even possible that this could happen. And I can't believe that this truck is stuck. Like, I had a truck of King's Hawaiian bread just blow up into flames, or trailer. So then like the joke was everything was croutons. So, and like at that point, like, how do you handle that? Like, it was just half of the trailer, and like, you're like, that's like exception handling, but it's where I can handle those exceptions quicker, and not worrying about anything else except for that one thing. I'm able to focus.
right.
I think
I'm going to
that's
actually use that term going forward. I'm going to say, great, everything's croutons. I'm going to start using that. That's going to be my tagline at this point. No, I mean, there are things that I could tell a quick story that people would. I had a load that was an overdimensional fiberglass tank go from Texas to Memphis, Tennessee. I get a call from the driver, and he says, hey, we got a problem. I'm like, what happened? He's like, I had a car pull in front of me. I hit the brakes, and we load them on wood saddles. They sit off the deck on wood saddles, like, that are curved. He's like, the tank fell off the saddles and it fell onto the deck. And I'm like, well, can you secure it enough to be able to I mean, how far away are you? I'm 10 miles away from the receiver. I'm like, well, can you secure it enough to get down the road? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. So he gets down there, and the receiver calls me. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, the tank's damaged. I'm like, I do know the tank's damaged. We're going to bring it in. It's, you have the right to either refuse it or take it, and we can send somebody out. I'm going through all the procedures. And he's like, I understand the car pulled out in front. I'm like, yeah. The damage on the bottom, understand. Not liking it. How did the tank get damaged on top? I'm like, what? What damage on top? The tank on top. How did it get damaged on top? It's all smashed on top. I have absolutely no idea how the tank got damaged. Call my driver. He's like, nope, I don't know how that got damaged. I'm getting pictures and I'm like, holy crap, this isn't tree branches. This is construction at the top of this tank. And now it's fiberglass. So, of course, he's sticking to his story that the car. So the next day I get a video from the manufacturer. He says, I got something to send you. Open that link. And it's a YouTube link of my truck stuck underneath a bridge, and he's letting the air out of the tires to try to get out from underneath the bridge.
My God.
To this day, the guy claims it's not him. I'm like, bro, that's my truck because I had a carrier. That's the name of my company on the door. That's my phone number. That's my tank. That's you. I know you. You underneath there letting the air out of the tires with the cops. And behind you. That's not me. That's not me. How does AI handle that? I don't know. I don't know how the AI handles that. Because I mean, I fired the guy but it's like to this day. I mean, he never came off that story.
Oh my
I
God.
sent him the video. He's like, no, not me.
That's like something my kids would do and say, like you catch them red-handed and there's to the grave. I'm like, well, because you're lying, you're double trouble.
Yeah.
So good
Like
job.
Mom, the cookie jar bit me.
Yeah.
What happened? It just came down the counter and bit my hand. I
Yeah.
was trying to get the apple.
The dog ate all the cookies. It wasn't me.
But I mean, these are the things that happen that it's like now how does AI handle shipping that tank back, getting it repaired, sending out, an insurance company to determine how they're going to proceed with it. So there's a lot of things that happen in logistics that it's not stagnant, it's dynamic. Like things are constantly changing. And even to the point that I truly wonder how some customers even function. It's almost like they're shocked on when freight's coming, right? They're like, hey, we were supposed to have this load out 2 days ago. What? It's a holiday weekend. It's overdimensional. I can't move. Yeah. Is there any way we can load it and just put it on your trailer and just let it sit here for a week until we can figure out what to do? What? It's like, did you not know you were building this in your shop? Well, we did. I'm like, so
Forgot about it.
Yeah, right. We just forgot about it. So there's just a lot that happens within the industry of logistics that it's chaos. It's a lot.
Beast for sure. Yeah.
It absolutely is. And it takes a specific style of person to be able to handle the chaos and then go home at night and cry in a corner screaming into a pillow. And I may or may not be that man.
I think really logistics, like if you're not a problem solver, that's not who you are. You're not in the right industry because there's so many things that happen that you've never experienced before that you're like, I gotta figure out how to fix this problem. It's the weirdest thing I've ever heard of. Even my boss who's been in the business for 20 years has never dealt with this. Like, how do we even start? And I love that nowadays people are starting to have YouTube channels like yourself and give instruction, teach people on how to do things. Cause I think for so long, it was just you had to have that one guy that knew all the things. And that was the only way you were ever going to learn. And I'm so glad that we're all now talking. Cause I think that's the only way we can all get better at what we're doing. So
we don't all have to agree. It's good to have, a lot of my stuff is, disagreeing and having discourse and having debate and things like that. We don't have to attack each other. Right. But there's having that disagreement and that discourse and basically saying, look, fine, we all agree that I'm right. Perfect. No, that's not what I said. Well, that's how I heard it. But still, it's just that it's having that discourse to be able to go back and forth to get through things and hear each other out, because it's amazing that within logistics, like you said, it's like, oh, I've actually had that happen. This is how we handled it. Oh, well, I've done it this way. Ooh, that's a good idea too. Right. And it's just because even though it's new to me, it might not be new to him, but we might handle it two different ways. And that's kind of with logistics. Sometimes you can do, sometimes you can't, but sometimes you can do that. But it's having the discourse, like I said, not all of us agree in regards to the fraud. Not all of us agree in regards to statements, in regards to, drivers and this English speaking and then this and this and this. But we all agree that we're trying to figure out a way to make the industry better. We're never going to make it perfect because it's impossible.
that's impossible.
But it's just trying to figure out ways to make it better, not just for the brokers, not just for the shippers, but for all of us, for the carriers, for the insurance companies, dare I say, but for the brokers. And I think that's the conversations that we need more of, right? We're not the echo chambers, but the people that say, yep, we need to hammer this out, right?
Yeah.
I have a big one that I'm constantly fighting people over the driver shortage, right? I believe there's a driver shortage. People are like, no, there's no driver shortage. And I say, well, there's no CDL shortage. There's no a driver shortage there is, meaning people that want to drive. I have a license. I don't want to drive. Right.
Right.
So why? And you fix them two different ways. So if you have a driver shortage, we have to find out why good drivers don't want to drive anymore, why they left the industry, what happened. If we have a CDL shortage, we need to get more people CDLs. Those are handled two different ways. But if we can't come to the realization that, yes, we have a driver shortage, meaning getting drivers their license and keeping them in the industry with not having a zillion turnover rate, we should look at that, right? And if that means that there's a driver shortage, and I get that fight or that pushback so many times, it's like, oh, it's semantics. It's not semantics if the problem is solved two different ways, right? But it's these conversations that we need to have so that we can get on the same page and say, oh, yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. I didn't want to hear it because you said driver shortage and that's a lie. But they didn't want to get past that one statement I said.
Yeah.
They didn't want to hear my whole point. They didn't want the context of the story. They just read the headline and they're like, I'm out of here. I'm like,
Yeah.
they didn't want to hear it. And I think we're now getting to the point that we're starting to bring more people together to get to the context of the stories, not
Right.
just the headlines. And I think that's a good thing. I
Yeah.
could be wrong.
No, I totally agree. I think that it's almost like America in general because politics wise, we were didn't listen to each other at all. I think we're getting a little bit better about listening to each other. Kind of same thing in logistics. And I don't know kind of what the reasoning is. I think everybody was so shocked I think it has to do with the vid. And it's like we were all so not together in anything. We're at home, we were stuck. And then it's like, oh, actually, I miss people and I want to get along with people. Like whenever, working from home, like I was always in an office and then working from home, I'm still remote and I love being remote, but I love people. Like meeting new people oh my God, you have no idea what a high that is for me. So it's like, that is my jam, but I work from home and I would never not work from home. Like I love it. So I think there's a lot of people are in the same boat and it's learning and talking to people and then hearing their whole experience. Like you said, hearing everybody out. I think there's way too many people who are short-sighted and short-minded really is the right word. And won't, explore everything.
So my turn. So do you think that some of why we do what we now is because the vid, that's my term. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that was for COVID. I'm a YouTuber. Was because we never seen that before. And there was a whole bunch of new problems that were like, I have no idea how to handle this. What is going on? All my stuff's at the port. It's costing me $17 to move something that I quoted my customer 30 days ago for $4. And now it's costing do you think that we basically had to come out and find new ways to solve problems and seek what we thought was so consistent in our business that became inconsistent that we didn't know how to handle? Because I think that was a lot of it. Do you
Yeah.
agree with that? Or?
No, I do agree with that. I think it was a lot of exception handling that we never had to deal with before. And so everybody kind of became a newbie at that same time because we've never dealt with anything like that. So I think a lot of us were able to come together and be like, this is totally different territory. But I think for a minute there, 2020, 2021, really a lot of 2022, everything was like, as a broker, I was like, I'm posted in my email. I'm not answering any phone calls if any calls come in. I still know some brokers that are still like that, like take that human element completely out of it. And then all of a sudden fraud became such a problem. 2022 really is kind of when everything really took off.
Yeah.
And I think that was because we took the human element out of it. And so we had to be like, oh, let's revert back to when we didn't have this, put the human back in it. And so I think that kind of helped as well, like on the fraud ways, things kind of brought us together. Like you said, different things like on, I quoted this is a totally different new territory. I don't know what I'm doing. Nobody knew what they were doing. I think that brought everybody
Right.
together too. So
Yeah, that's a good point.
took a
Great. I
year.
was a newbie. I became a newbie again.
Right.
Newbie. Yeah, but you're right. And I think that's a good way of putting it. It's like we're all newbies now. Why? Because none of us have any idea what we're doing anymore. But it, again, that's what we do in logistics. Chaos happens. We try to bring calm to the chaos. But it was tough. And I think you're right. And I think that that's where a lot of people started to reach out and say, where they didn't need help before, because it was so, you had that they're like, I need help. I don't, I don't know what to do. I can't find a truck. Like, what is going on? This used to pay great money, and people are like, yeah, not a chance. What do you mean, not a chance? And I think that was where, I mean, even me with overdimensional freight, I don't post loads. I didn't have a load board. I just got a load board when I switched to the agency. And it was funny because I'm like, hey, what's this DAT thing? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't post loads. I've been in this so long that my carriers, I just text them. Hey, I got a load. Where you at? Right. So just recently I've had to post a load, and I posted a load, and my phone, it won't stop ringing. Why is this thing ringing so much? What is going on here? What is happening? Am I having a stroke? What is happening? And it was just the fact that it, for me, it was to see phone explode just by posting a load that I felt was, a legitimate rate that they all thought was the best rate in the world. But that's what I get. Like, I get in a lot of trouble sometimes because sometimes I say, hey, you as a carrier, you want to be on a broker's short list, right? You want to get off what I call the minimum wage job opportunity board, which is the DAT board, right? That's your first, that might be, you get on that, you use that to establish yourself, bring value to your broker, make it where they want to use you every time. And then next thing you know, you're not using that load board as a driver. I'm calling you direct. And that's a good thing, right? Brokers should be looking for carriers that they don't have to post, right? That they can just be like, hey, you know my customer, you do a great job, you make my customer, you know where to park, you know where to load, you know my guy, like that makes everything go faster with my customer. And that's kind of how I run my brokerage. But for the first time, I was having to post loads to try, because my carriers were either tied up or they were doing other stuff because it was just chaos. And to be told like $4 a mile to haul freight from Texas to, Missouri was not enough money for a legal flatbed for me. I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, this is no tarp, just straps only, 10,000 pounds. This is not an overdimensional load. It's legal. It's $4. Just take it to Ohio. Nope. I'm looking for 6. 6 what?
Yeah.
Is that real? And so I think that's where I was basically struggling is even my customers were basically like, what's going on here? And I'm like, well, we can wait till next week when my truck can get here, or you'll have to pay this. And a lot of my customers said, we'll wait. Just bring your normal guy in. That would do it. And so that was even me basically doing this for 22 years now, saying, I have no idea what I'm doing. What is going on?
Everybody was like that, I think. Yeah. Which hopefully we're over the hump and things will get better and back to normal. But I still think we're all learning from each other, which I love. I love that we're all finally talking. I appreciate you coming on, and that, takes people like you going out there talking to everybody and giving all your knowledge. So I'm glad you do all the things you do. Where can everybody find you and become best
I don't know
friends?
if that's a good thing or bad thing, but we'll give it to you. So you can find me at Sage Outcast. So I'm at Log Rock Insurance. So you can find me at Log Rock. Just ask for Sage, the crazy broker guy. But that's pretty much I'm at. So Sage Outcast on YouTube. And I do want to thank you for having me on, because I do believe some people have to hear the story that, hey, you can overcome even these hard times. If you just find that niche, find that way. Like I said, my niche was going from legal freight to overdimensional freight. And I found that, and I just learned about it and studied. So just find that niche, what you feel you're strong at, and do that. Niche. My wife yells at me all the time. Basically, who cares? Potato.
Yeah.
Find that. And I just think it takes, other podcasters like you putting the stories out, showing that, yeah, you're not the only one maybe in this situation, but you can get out. Because trust me, wherever you think you were, I was way worse mentally and everything else. So my wife's somebody who has legally been committed 6 times. So it was technically very hard for her. So you can pull yourself out. And I'm just glad I'm able to share that story and hopefully give some hope to some people.
Yeah. I mean, you made me learn a lot. So I appreciate you sharing all that. Well, thanks so much for coming on, and hope to have you on again soon.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
All right, cool. Bye, guys.
Tell me everything.
Everything.
Tell me everything.